Welcome. We're going to take a look at one of the most famous disasters in history, the sinking of the RMS Titanic. But we aren't just looking at the history. We are going to analyze this as a project management case study. We know the story. On April 10, 1912, she set sail for New York. But from a PM perspective, the disaster actually started long before the ship hit the iceberg. It started with decisions made during design, construction, and testing. First, let's look at the strategy. The key stakeholders, financier J.P. Morgan, White Star Chairman Bruce Ismay, and shipbuilder Lord Peary, had a clear goal: compete against their rival Cunard. Their strategy? They decided their unique selling point would be luxury rather than speed. The plan was to build 3 ultramodern ships: the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Britannic. However, conflicting priorities among these stakeholders immediately led to our first major jargon term: scope creep. They started changing the project scope without fully considering the impacts on safety. Here is a classic example of bad scope management. The stakeholders used flawed lessons from the previous ship, the Olympic, to modify the Titanic's design. To fit the luxury goal, they increased first-class accommodation. But to do that, they reduced the number of lifeboats. The project's chief designer, Carlisle, actually resigned over this specific lifeboat issue, but the stakeholders ignored his expert judgment. This is a fatal lesson in ignoring technical expertise to satisfy stakeholder preferences. Next, let's look at quality assurance, or QA. The Titanic sea trials, her testing phase, were disastrously short. Why? Because the sister ship, Olympic, needed repairs that took up the shipyard's time. Instead of delaying the launch, marketing pressure forced the team to reduce sea trials to just half a day. Essentially, the maiden voyage became the sea trial. The project prioritized the marketing deadline over the integrity of the product. Now, let's look at the team. A project team needs time to go through the stages of forming, storming, and performing. The Titanic crew didn't get that. They were given only 5 days to prepare and were barely familiar with the ship's layout. To make it worse, there was a last-minute change of senior officers, causing confusion. This lack of preparation led to operational failures. For instance, the lookouts in the crow's nest didn't have access to binoculars because they were locked away with officers of a specific rank. They had to rely on their naked eyes to spot hazards. Finally, the ultimate failure: communication. Just hours before the collision, the wireless operator, Jack Phillips, received a message from a nearby ship warning him of icebergs. But Phillips was overloaded. He was busy sending messages for passengers, prioritizing stakeholder requests over risk management. He actually replied to the warning by saying, "Shut up, I am working Cape Race." Because of this lack of protocol and interpersonal skills, the iceberg warning never reached the bridge. So while the iceberg sank the ship, it was scope creep, skip testing, and poor communication that made the disaster inevitable.